Well, Billy Hurley III recently posted this on his Twitter account. Such a cute photo of him back in the day, saying Christmas is rapidly approaching and I'm finishing up shopping for my kids, or my wife is. Many people will know that feeling, but I remember making my first par with this set of golf clubs that he must have received for Christmas many years ago. And I'm sure many people remember making their first par with their first set of clubs. Because like many of the players in this week's father-son tournament, and like many of us in general, Billy Hurley III learned the game from his dad. But for those of us who have lost loved ones, the holiday season can sometimes be a reminder of their absence. Sadly, Hurley will be spending his third holiday season in a row without his father. Our own Todd Lewis sat down with him to discuss the life of his dad, Willard Hurley Jr., and Kelsey Grammer narrates us through the ever-evolving relationship between a father and a son, and between feeling and reality.
Normally it was dark, and there was a floodlight on the back of our house that was onto the deck. I had a club in my hand, and that's where feelings, not reality, came from.
There's a storytelling device that I'm sure you're well acquainted with, and we're using it here. It's called reenactment. You try to reimagine a time and place that's past, gone forever, and somehow tap back into the emotion and meaning of a moment that mattered. You're seeing one from our story, a backyard golf lesson between a father and a son. It's a mirror image of reality, accurate down to the grip on the club, the vintage Atlanta Braves hat, the 120-watt halogen floodlight illuminating the Virginia grass in need of a cut. We tried. We really, really tried. But there's a problem. It's a fallacy, a facsimile, an imperfect photocopy. This might feel real, but it's not. This is not our protagonist as a child. This is not his father. This isn't a tour of duty. This is not a library in Texas. These are not Bowie County police officers. This isn't a real gun. This is not a crime scene. This isn't a life-changing victory. These are not someone's final moments. As hard as we'll try, we can't take you back. A father once told a son in a backyard in Virginia that it doesn't matter if a swing feels right or wrong. Feeling isn't reality. He's right. But sometimes, it's all we have.
My dad was definitely serious about the game. I mean, he played in college, and he was an assistant pro at a course in Western Virginia before I was born. And I think because of his love of the game, me and my brother both ended up picking up the game and enjoying it.
Billy Hurley III grew up in Leesburg, Virginia, a half-hour northwest of Washington, D.C. His father, Willard Hurley Jr., a police officer and sergeant during Billy's childhood, was a strict disciplinarian but created a strong bond with his son through the game he loved.
I can remember lots of nights where Billy and Dad would just go to the back porch and would just be talking for hours.
He was my best friend. He was who I talked to about everything, probably way more than he ever wanted to talk to me.
After a successful high school golf career, Hurley had the opportunity to play at several mid-major Division I colleges, but chose to enroll at the Naval Academy.
My mom and dad came to every college tournament I played in. We joke and say that it was a spectator sport watching my dad watch golf. He was a nervous wreck, marching up and down fairways. I had to have a couple conversations with him about, hey, you gotta stay out of the way a little bit more, this is distracting.
As a senior, he won 6 of the 12 events that we played in. When he was selected for the Palmer Cup, I realized he can play with the best college players in the country.
That was really the first time where the PGA Tour went from dream to possibility.
But Hurley's dreams would have to wait. As a Naval Academy graduate, he was required to serve in the U.S. Navy for 5 years. He was commissioned as a service warfare officer, serving time on a destroyer in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
I mean, I had my clubs kind of back in the corner of my stateroom and I had them tied up against the walls, but I really didn't swing them. I wanted to fulfill my 5-year commitment, and then I wanted to chase the dream of playing on the PGA Tour after that. It was the summer of 2009. For the first time in my life, I was doing nothing but golf.
The re-emergence didn't go as planned. After missing multiple cuts and feeling like the game wasn't coming back, the mounting failure was taking a toll. But it was his father who stepped in with a simple call on a trip home from the golf course to put things in perspective.
He literally said, like,
no one else you're playing against is taking a break from the game. Cut yourself some slack.
You've been doing this for 6 months, and all the guys you're playing against have been doing it for
6 to 10 years.
It's one of those moments that sticks out in my head. I was low and I was frustrated, and he gave me reality.
The reality check worked. In the summer of 2011, Hurley would earn his PGA Tour card. But in a sport defined by multi-million-dollar purses, he was in a constant struggle to maintain status on the tour. This was the case in 2015, when he entered the Quicken Loans National at Robert Trent Jones, a course just 25 miles from where he grew up, and where his father had worked players' security for President's Cups in the 90s. But on the Monday before the start of the tournament, Billy would get a call from Wallace Mitchell, a longtime friend of the family.
I don't really remember the exact words of the conversation, but him just telling me that my dad was missing, and I kind of, what do you mean missing? And then he kind of walked me through the whole thing of my dad just walking out of the house 7 or 8 days ago, and my mom hadn't heard from him or seen him or talked to him. I said, hey Wallace, I got a question for you. Did my dad take his gun? And he said, yeah, Billy, he did.
I just couldn't understand why or what was going on. It was so out of character and surprising.
No one really knew what the next steps were.
Hurley had a scheduled press conference after his practice round on Tuesday. With no leads into the disappearance, he made the difficult decision to use the opportunity to get the word out about his missing father.
And I'm really coming to you guys and asking for help. My family and I are trusting you guys as like the PGA Tour media family to help us, not run over us. It was a vulnerable spot to tell the world that your dad's missing and you have no idea why. So last Sunday, 9 days ago, my dad took some clothes, he took some cash, he got in his truck and he drove away, and no one's heard from him since.
We as a family all recognize that he took quite a burden to go and make a public statement like that.
I'm just hoping that there's a story that maybe he goes to PGAtour.com to check my tee time or to check my score, and sees this and understands that, Dad, we love you and we want you to come home.
Police are searching for the father of a pro golfer who disappeared without warning.
His wife filed a missing person report on Monday.
In the midst of a family crisis, Billy Hurley III is already competing on the golf course.
I played because I thought that was the only chance of finding my dad. I was pretty confident that he would find a way to check my scores. Golf was difficult, very difficult. Security were wearing the uniform that I remembered my dad wearing growing up. And I remember seeing police officers at certain times and like weirding me out a little bit because it was like, that's what my dad wore and now I don't know where he is. On 10, a camera showed up and started following my group. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I'm in 50th place. I knew something was up. And then I remember seeing a PGA Tour security official after I walked off the 18th green. He said, Billy, they found your dad.
Willard Hurley was found over 1,000 miles from his home in Virginia at a library in Texarkana, Texas. He had been missing for 12 days. Remarkably, someone had recognized him from the coverage following Billy's press conference and contacted the local police.
He was doing exactly what I thought he would be doing, and he was checking my scores. So my dad's been found. He's safe, he's alive, he's in Texas. He was polite but short and just said he was traveling. And at the end of the day, he had done nothing illegal, and so they couldn't hold him or force him to do anything. So we just basically had a dot on a map of where he was at one point in time on Friday afternoon.
With few options, the Hurley family simply hoped and waited. 2 weeks after he had been spotted and questioned by police in Texas, Billy received a call from his brother, Dan.
I picked up the phone, and my brother, Dan, just said, "Dad's dead."
But then I, relayed to him that, he was dead because of suicide.
I was incredibly sad that my dad was dead. I was incredibly, upset that he committed suicide. And then I remember walking into my mom's house and seeing her crying in a chair.
Willard Hurley was found in a remote area near the Potomac River in Virginia, 20 miles from his home. It had been nearly 1 month since he had gone missing. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The Hurley family doesn't know what led to his suicide.
At the end of the day, it doesn't help me to think about why, or to think about what happened for him in those last few moments of his life.
Hurley didn't have much time to mourn his father's death. As was the case throughout his career, in 2015, he was riding the bubble of keeping his PGA Tour card. So he needed to play in tournaments soon after his father's passing to maintain his status, a monumentally difficult task in the aftermath of personal tragedy.
I think both of us associated golf with our dad, and he had to go live that every time he got on the golf course.
It just wasn't any fun. I wasn't playing any good, and I wasn't really enjoying it. So I had talked about retirement because that just sounds better than quitting.
While Hurley was contemplating walking away from the game, he would take an important step that would ultimately keep him in golf and help him begin to reconcile his feelings about his father's death.
I was really encouraged to forgive my dad, and I didn't really want to do that. Getting over the anger at him for committing suicide, and that was hard, but I think that's when my golf started to turn around.
Shortly after recommitting to golf, Hurley would enter the 2016 Quicken Loans National, the exact tournament where his father had disappeared a year earlier. In his 5-year PGA Tour career, Hurley had never finished in the top 3 in any tournament and entered as 607th in the world golf rankings. But despite these odds, Hurley surprised the golf community and took a 2-stroke lead into the final round of his hometown event.
First on the tee, please welcome Billy Hurley III.
Billy Hurley will be a popular champion if he pulls it off.
It'll be the story of the year.
But if it were to become the story of the year, it wouldn't come easy. Hurley clung to a small lead for most of the day, but after losing a stroke on 12, found himself in trouble again on 15. With a 1-stroke lead in the tournament, the reality of winning his first PGA Tour event hinged on this moment.
Over to 15, Billy Hurley. How about making it?
Hello.
Yes, indeed. Incredible.
It was the first time that my thoughts shifted from he could win to he's going to win.
Victory walk coming up. Dream about to come true. His mom's already in tears.
This is a life changer.
The magnitude just hit me that I won on the PGA Tour.
Been a really hard year, so it's nice to have something go well.
Obviously, it was missing my dad.
Our whole family is very proud of Billy, but I don't know that anyone would have experienced that pride the way my dad would have.
Winning made it okay to celebrate my dad's life. In suicide, we tend to focus on the death But that was kind of the point for me in which it flipped from my dad who committed suicide to my dad who was my dad.
Just 3 months before hoisting the trophy at Congressional, Billy Hurley had contemplated walking away from the game. Now in a tournament that conjured feelings of a shared love of golf, of loss, anger, and now forgiveness, he had won on the PGA Tour. He was finally able to let go of what had been holding him back, and for the first time address his feelings directly to his father.
I love you, I miss you, and one final thing I need you to know, I forgive you.
A father once told a son in a backyard in Virginia that it doesn't matter how something feels. So what do you do when a feeling falls short of recapturing some truth about a moment in time, or a life lived? Maybe you stop trying. No scenes painting a picture that can never again be drawn. No metaphors comparing sports to life to help make sense of an event that defies logic. No unneeded cinematic touches. No belting crescendo of music meant to give goosebumps. No edits. How about we just end with the son telling us a simple yet fond memory of his father? That seems honest and truthful.
The line that I always remember is that, you know, if I made a par putt or made a birdie putt to kind of get back to even par or something like that, he'd always go, "There you go."
Well, there you go. A powerful story of the relationship between a father and a son, and most importantly, of life, forgiveness, and moving forward. Our thoughts are with the Hurley family and all who have lost a loved one this Christmas. We'll be back after this.